Remember, I stated in my last video, you don't forget, make sure your cup gaps are good before you do this. I like to crank it down just to where I could barely slide the gauge underneath the pin, like that. Once you do that, then you want to stick your combo square against that bolt right there, the black bolt, and loosen the collar and slide it off. And basically till you get a center bubble like that. Make sure when you do that you adjust before you do that. Loosen the stop bolt, turn it inward to where you have about this 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch air gap. Then you want to turn the spot rod till you get that bubble reading. Again, just making note that this right here, the one closest to the table, is the spot rod. The one furthest away from the table is the re-spot rod. Now, after you do that, you want to center the yoke. Now, how Stahls, AMF, everybody wants you to do it is they want you to put the combo square on this side, and you want to get the same reading that you got on this side with the bubble being in the center on both sides. Yeah, well, I don't do that. You don't need to do that. You never need to do that, because I have found that, well, I'm going to tell you how I found that. I had an issue one time where a table went out of whack, and it was right before the league, and I needed to do what I needed to do to get it into adjustment. It was so far out of adjustment, I needed to start from square one with my yoke adjustments. And the collar was actually stripped on that side, so I couldn't get it. Which side? Yeah, so I couldn't get the proper reading on that side. And the X-frame was really off. It was like really off to the one side, so I needed to get that X-frame moved, and I couldn't do it because the collar was stripped, so I couldn't get the reading I wanted. So what I did was, I was thinking. You could actually, I went to a lane that it was done, that I did already, and you could actually take the 5/16 gauge and stick it between the yoke and the yoke leg. And you see how I could barely fit it in there within like a 1/16 of an inch gap? Like, you don't want to be able to fit it. If you fit it in, that means the X-frame needs to go over. If you can't, then it needs to go over to the right. If you can, then it needs to go over to the left towards the 7-pin. So you want to get it just to where you could barely fit it in. You see, do that. Then after you do that, do this. Do this adjustment. And basically all that does is eliminate the step of you having to stick the combo square on this side and do the bubble on this side. So basically all you need to do is just stick the gauge right there. I told you what the reading is. And then just set the bubble. And then your X-frame centered. Remember, you gotta loosen the collars. And then that's it, you're done. And then after that, you have to go and spot each pin with the cups. You have to go and get all the pins on spot. And all you do is just pretty much just go and just center and get them all on spot. After I do that, what I do is actually I crank the table down to where the pins are just touching the pin deck. And I actually just double check how much toe I actually have. Something that I also like to do that I left out is that after I level the table and do everything like that, I actually like to set the nose of the table about a 1/16 of an inch lower than the back. A lot of people here like to do that. I like to do that because I think it gives you the pins. I think you get a nicer spotting action. I think that's just my preference. I think you get more of a nicer pull away that way. I mean, it's not much. Just maybe you lower the front of the nose, determining on the overall everything on the machine, the condition of everything where it is how much you lower the nose of that table. So anyway, yeah, that's how you set, and that's how I do them. That's how I set up my tables. Now remember, just so you don't forget, you can look back in the video, but like I said, I center the bubble, use center bubble like that. You want to get make sure you loosen the stop bolt to where there's a slight air gap. Turn the spot rod until you get that. Then now remember, you don't need to put the combo square on that side and take it off. You can just stick the gauge in here like this and barely fit it. So say if this collar's messed up or it's stuck on there or the Allen screw stripped and you have a million other things you're doing, you know, obviously go into your mechanic's to-do list, mark that the collar's stripped on here, so if you ever do have to take this apart, you know. And then you could set the bubble on this side and not do it on that side, and just center the X-frame by sticking the gauge in there. Because by doing that, like I said, you could barely fit it. That's how you tell the X-frame's centered. And if you don't believe me, you can go to a machine that's done using the combo square on both sides and stick the gauge in here and tell me the reading you get. That's how I did it. So that's how this works. All this does is eliminate the step of you having to go with the combo square on that side. So this is how I've always done it. It gives you the same result. It's really the same thing. But anyway, the Stahls method is how I do it with setting the bubble like that. Not the AMF way. And the Stahls method eliminates the whole 6-inch adjustment here, turning the stop bolt to where there's a slight air gap, and then going down and setting it to where you have a quarter bubble of the rear with the bolt. It eliminates that step the Stahls way. So this is the method I use of how I do my tables. Works really well. I did not do them all. This table I did not do yet. There's no need for me to do it. It runs perfectly fine and it has no issues. Yeah, so anyway, so that's my video. I'm going to quickly state that if you ever have to remove the table, make sure you crank the table up to where it's as close to the shuttle as it can be. Then what you want to do is you want to remove both counterbalance springs. After you remove both counterbalance springs, then you can crank the table back down to where the weight's off. After the weight's off of the table, you can unbolt both of those end fittings. Then after that, what you want to do is disconnect the table drive. Disconnect the clevis, take that out, the whole thing will come apart. After you're done with that, what you want to do is you want to get a spring puller, stick it in here like this. Stick it in this center hole. This is how I do it anyway. I don't know how anybody else does it. Stick it in the center hole. Just leave it there. Loosen this nut to where you could take it off, but make sure the bolt is still in there. Well, that bolt's not going anywhere with that spring pulling back on it like that. Then once this nut's off, you want to pull back with one hand on the spring puller. Pull this kind of forward and the bolt and just kind of pull it out slowly. Then once this comes out, then just ease it back. Now this is for the spotting rod. Now this one's going to be a little bit more difficult because this is the respot rod. But you see, if you do it with the table down, there's not as much spring tension here, so it's easy to get back in and back on. Once you disconnect both of these, then you can unbolt the spot and respot rod. Once you unbolt the spot and respot rod and you disconnect your counterbalance springs or whatever, now there's a couple different ways you can remove the table. If you want to just change the table out and leave the legs alone and everything like that, you could leave the end fittings and everything on. The leveling rods we're talking about. All you do is you want to just unbolt these bolts on this side, those bolts on that side, and I stated to you how everything comes out, and then that's it. Now you would probably want to have the table on a dolly or a milk crate or something, and then you just slide it out. But just take note that when you take the spot rod off, there's going to be no spring tension. So once you actually remove this spring here, like do what I said with the spring puller, pulling it in like